Hey guys, what's going on? Today I'm going to give you 5 tips that I learned over the last year selling fine art landscape photography. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned and I'll see you right after this. So I'm not claiming to be any expert by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I've only been doing landscape photography a little bit over a year now. I would say that there are some things that I do really well, and there's a lot of things that I need to do better. And at the end of every year, I like to take time to look back and reflect and to see what things I can maybe improve on moving forward, and see some small wins maybe in my journey thus far, and keep moving on, right? I have been doing photography for a long time though. Not a lot of people know that I have actually pretty much have touched a camera my entire life. When I was younger, it happened to be more phone cameras and my parents' DSLR. Me and my buddies would grab our phones and we would make videos together. So I've been around the creative arts for my entire life. I also picked up a camera more seriously in high school. That's actually where I met my wife, I met her. I went to a really, really tiny high school, so it wasn't hard to meet her, but we actually got to know each other in our high school photography class. And that is where I learned most of my skills as a photographer. At the time, it was more portrait driven and more doing events and documentation. But that's where I learned all my basic skills like shutter speed, ISO, aperture, like how to work a camera, and really some of the business of being a photographer. Now, I did step away from photography completely through college in my undergrad years. And it wasn't until the Rona hit that I decided to pick up a camera. Now, looking back too, though, throughout my life, anytime I had an excuse to grab a camera, I would. If a friend needed something, or if I needed to do a school project or whatever, I would grab a camera at the quickest opportunity I possibly could. So photography's really been in my blood, videography, all of it. Really just creating has been a passion of mine throughout life. So, when I transitioned into more landscape photography and the business of selling art, there was a lot of things that I realized I didn't really know. And I didn't know that in the moment, but now I do. So that's why I like to take the moment like this to look back, reflect, and to really see areas that I've grown in, and to look for areas that I could potentially grow in more as I get ready to start setting goals for 2022 coming up. Without me rambling on any longer, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into the first tip, which is by far one of the more difficult ones for me and has been a struggle for me, and I'm going to continue to grow in, but is the skill of simplifying your viewer's experience. Really just simplifying the viewing experience of your particular photograph or image or piece of art, right? So I had this image that's called The Dividing Current. It is by far the most popular image I have to date, and honestly, for the longest time, I didn't know why. A lot of my inner circle has heard me say, really, it's not that great of a photograph. I would look at all the textbook things and say, the composition's okay, but the lighting was terrible. I mean, I blew my highlights. The color wasn't really that good. So I started to study this image a little bit more, because by far it was beating all of my other images in terms of sales. So it was obviously resonating with a lot of my collectors, and I just couldn't put my thumb on it. So what I thought it maybe was okay, maybe it's because it's green, or maybe it's the forest scenes is what people like. Well, then I would go shoot other forest scenes and try to put those on the site, and nothing, crickets, and I even sold one. So what was it about this image that people were connecting with? And really, it is the simplicity of it. Again, it was frustrating because I had images on my website that are grand, they're epic, they're in great lighting, they're under the night sky, like all this other cool stuff, but still this image kicked butt. And it wasn't until really not too long ago that I realized it is just simple. It's simple in a very interesting kind of way, because the scene is chaotic, there's a lot going on. But it's pretty easy to look at. Your eye goes straight to the rock in the center of the frame. Then you watch the flow of the tide around it, the current. And really there's a lot of symbolism in that. It's easy for my viewers to connect with it. And then the light in the back looks good. I mean, it's blown out, but it doesn't matter. So there's really nice soft light throughout. It's just an easy image to look at. It's simple. So from that, I decided to, think about ways of incorporating what was doing well with this image. Why was it selling well? And putting that into my other images. Now, that's not going to say that you have to shoot intimate scenes to sell. Now, I've sold grand landscapes myself as well, or the epic sunsets and all the things that are really fun to shoot as a landscape photographer, right? And I know you'll go to 20 other YouTube channels or even blogs or whatever about photography, and they're going to say it's all about light and composition, and really this is the case. The light and the composition create such a simple viewing experience that it's enjoyable to look at and anybody can relate with. And you can do this with any of your scenes, no matter how grand, how epic, how intimate they are. These concepts transcend all photography. And this is something that I'm looking forward to incorporating in my photography moving forward even more, is how do I guide my viewers in a very simplistic way for them to be able to connect with my piece of art that is subjective to them, because now I'm able to reach a wider variety of people with my piece of artwork. And it's also enjoyable for me when I hear from people the different stories and feelings that my artwork brings out in them when they look at it. So again, simplifying the viewing experience, whether that's with composition, with light, or with both, or just looking at a scene in a different way, which leads me to my next few points. My second point is, don't be afraid of color, but you better respect it. When I first started doing landscape photography, I had no idea how to handle a color palette of an image, and really frankly, this is still a weakness of mine that I am working on constantly. At the beginning, I would oversaturate my images in a way that was like vomit, throw up in my shoe kind of color. It was just way overdone. It was not tasteful. There was just so many colors going on in my color palette. It was just like, oh my God. And then I had a phase where I'm like, no, I'm going to go dramatic and moody. I'm going to pull all the color out. So I would do that, right? I would remove all of the color, especially green. I don't like green. Me and green don't get along very well. Like HSL, greens, gone. Yellows, gone. But this really held me back with my photography. I was making it too dark, too moody, right? Which is great. It performs well on social media, frankly, but it doesn't always do well selling, right? Which, for example, look at this image here. This I call the flow of life. It was a waterfall I captured in Maui, Hawaii. Honestly, it was a very gloomy rain. Actually, I captured this image when it was pouring rain still. So it was very gloomy out. You can tell in the water that it was, there was a lot of water flow that day. There wasn't much to it. So I decided I'm going to process it that way. I'm going to pull all the greens out, make it really dark, really moody, pull all the color out of the water so it's just green and like white, and maybe mute these oranges and stuff. And I was like, man, this image is going to do great because it's got green, it's got water, like the dividing current. It's going to be perfect. This image is going to sell. I haven't sold a single copy of this image. In fact, really, it didn't perform well on social media that either. So I don't know really what I was doing. But recently, I went back and I reprocessed this image. And I'll be honest, I do this a lot because it's great to go back and look at old images if you're a photographer yourself and to practice new skills on that old image. So I decided, hey, I'm going to reprocess this. And I love the way it came out so much better. I was able to tastefully add color back in. It was saturated enough to get across a mood and a feeling, but it didn't blow you away with color. Really, it still had a simplified scene to it. The color palette was a lot more cohesive, and there's different skills and tactics you can use to do that. And everything brought my viewer's eye right to the center where I wanted to go, which is that epic waterfall in the middle. I didn't always get this right. I mean, there's so many times, again, I would take that saturation slider and just, crank it all the way up. And man, that's one way of ruining a photo. It really is. Like, color is great, but you have to respect it. And that's definitely something I'm going to continue to work on, but I do feel pretty confident in where I'm at with my color in my photography, and some skills that I have and I'm learning that I'm going to continue to develop moving forward. So, but one of the things that made my color better is this third point, which is don't spend a ton of time working globally. Again, there's so many probably photography channels out there that are going to say it, but I cannot overstate it enough. Don't work global, work more local. What I mean by that is your global sliders is the first, like, 7, 10, whatever sliders they are in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw or Capture One, whatever software you're using. Don't spend a bunch of time in there. In fact, what I've learned over the last year, because I used to do that. I mean, I never even looked at a radial filter, linear gradient, or brush tool, or a lot of the tools I use in Photoshop until like 6 months ago, not even, right? But at the beginning, I was trying to get all my edits with those first 7 sliders, and I would just create these really crunchy, nasty, over-contrasted images that really had no simple viewing experience going on. The colors were all over the place. It was just meh. Again, one of the things that I've learned over the last year is in my global workflow, I try to get my image back to a very flat, neutral canvas for me to then go and be an artiste with. Okay, so what I mean is I'm trying to remove contrast really at the beginning, even though raw files have like no contrast already, but I want to flatten it out as much as possible. I want to get my white balance correct. I want to get my colors looking the way that they looked when I saw them on site. I really just want to get a flat canvas for me to then go play with. I want my histogram nicely in the middle, so then I can stretch it out with some contrast that I will then apply with local adjustments. And again, like, a lot of those local adjustments are linear gradients, radial filters, you're looking at your brush tool, you're looking at your different luminosity masks, you're looking at color selections, there's so many ways of doing it, especially now with the new Lightroom update. For those Adobe users out there, it makes it so simple to do a lot of these things. And then again, with using those local adjustments, you're able to then guide your viewer's eye and entice emotion with your images, which as an art seller does so much better than just capturing an image, putting some global adjustments that, you do that and then you send it out there, right? Because if you do that, side note here, welcome to my TED Talk. One of the things that drives me crazy is when somebody looks at one of my photos and they say, what kind of filter did you put on that? I'm gonna leave it right here by saying this. If you are staying global and not going into local adjustments, you are just using filters. And I can't stand that, because filters results in just like, I'm gonna snap a phone with a phone picture and throw a filter on there and it's done, which is not the case. That's not artwork. That's not photo art. Right? And that's not what really landscape photography is. I mean, I know a lot of you guys are probably sitting there saying, yeah, oh my God, I spent hours processing my images just to think I throw a filter on there, right? Now, those filters accomplish what global edits do, but they can never, never, never replicate the precision it takes to add local adjustments to your image in a tasteful way, an artistic way. That's really where you go back and start shaping light and really create the scene that you saw in your mind, right? Your camera can only capture the data. From there, you have to recreate it in an artistic way. So that's my TED Talk. But yes, don't go global, stay local more. And again, this is something I'm continuing to still work on. I'm not saying I'm perfect by it, but yes, when I started to incorporate dodging and burning, I started to incorporate local saturation, local sharpening, when I started to incorporate different skill sets of vignetting, right, to guide my viewer's eye, my photography took off, my post-processing took off, and my images started receiving a lot better, and they started printing a lot better, to be honest too. So, which then leads me to my fourth point, which is you're not always going to get it right the first time. And I can't even tell you how many times this has gotten me to, where I think, oh shoot, yeah, that's a good process, I'm gonna throw that online and put it up for sale right now. And then I look back at the next day and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? You're not always going to get it the first time. And this is something that I am probably one of the most impatient people you will ever meet. I just want to share it. I just want everybody to see it. I got to get it out there. It's done. Take a moment throw it in a folder as a first draft, go have a cup of coffee or whatever, even go to bed that night, whatever it is, take a break, come back, relook at it. Even if you like it, go back in there and redo the whole thing. Usually what I'll do is I'll go in Photoshop, I'll put all those layers together, group it in, say my first pass or whatever I want to call it, and I'll create a whole new thing and I'll hide that, right? And then I can now look back and forth immediately, which is then nice because I can look at the overall image. I can zoom in, I can do all that, right? Like really look at it detailed wise. Understand you're not going to get it right, especially if you're working locally. It's not globally, you're working locally. There's so many different local adjustments you can make. There's only a handful of global adjustments you can make. So you're gonna get the global ones right most of the time if you have a proper workflow. But those local ones, it's a lot of trial and error, and art is subjective. So whatever emotion you might be feeling that day is also going to amplify or adjust or change what your art is. So take that time to do it again, maybe 2 or 3 times before you put it out there. Right? Especially, first off, sharpening and saturation, make sure you don't like just send that out, because a lot of times you get that wrong. Well, at least in my case. So make sure that you take the time to let your eyes rest and let your photo editing palette calm down, and then go and redo it and see what you like from there. And the last thing that I learned, and this is the biggest one, is just go shoot. Right? I shoot Red Rock Canyon probably more than any other person known to man. For people that don't know Red Rock Canyon, it is a beautiful place here in Las Vegas. Yes, we have mountains in Las Vegas, not just casinos. It is literally 25 minutes from my door. Not even. I can be from my door to a composition in probably 20-25 minutes, easy. So I go there a lot, and I shoot the same thing a lot. But I am so glad that I do, because first off, I'm able to see my growth over the last year by looking at some of the hideous images that I captured compared to now, and some of the really god-awful processing I did compared to what I do now. Like, it's a benchmark for you. So even if you aren't in an area that you can go shoot a lot, like, just find something to shoot and try to grow yourself creatively. Often I see, and again, I'm sorry if I'm lecturing, I notice this with people, is no matter what, not even just with photography or art, is people think that just by sitting and consuming, they're going to just become this awesome person, or they're going to be able to learn this new skill, or they're going to be able to make a ton of money, or whatever, have success, popularity, fame, whatever it is. People just think that by consuming and sitting on their, sorry for saying it, sitting on their butts, that's going to accomplish all their goals, all their dreams, all their wishes. And that's just not the case. You have to get out there and you have to do it, right? And I was guilty about this at first. I mean, when I get in on something, like, I'm in. Like, I shoot, like, I end up in dark places on the YouTube when I'm trying to, like, learn a new skill, or when I'm trying to read about something. Like, I will spend hours and hours and hours and hours of time, my time to learn something. From there, where I've had success, though, in my life and learning new things, new skills, is then taking it and applying it and not being afraid to screw up. Because I screw up a lot, and I'm going to continue to screw up, and you guys are going to watch me screw up, and that is perfect. I want to screw up. I love failing. It's amazing. It sucks. It hurts. It is terrible for an ego, but it is essential for learning how to do something and learning how to do it well, and learning how to do it in a way that other people enjoy as well. So over the last year, I have tried to shoot and create and shoot and create and shoot and create, almost to the point, like, I don't even watch other people's stuff anymore, which is kind of to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to start learning some more stuff and some new skills to apply, but I am so much better off for doing it. First off, because it's way more rewarding for me, right? I'm able to learn more just by getting there and looking at my work, especially because I shot so many files throughout the year. I'm able to go back and find old files that I never even gave the time of day 7-8 months ago, a year ago. And I'm able to pull things from them and learn new skills from them that I would never have learned before. That's just because I got out there and shot. I got out there on my computer and I started processing. I got out there and I wasn't afraid to throw my work for people to critique. So just go. Just do it. Be a doer. Be a doer, right? And that's an aspect in life that you can look at in many other different ways. It doesn't have to be just photography, right? Like, sorry again for ranting, but like that's something that's I'm very passionate about, right? Is you gotta just stop looking at it in the way of, oh, it's just gonna come to me. No, you gotta go put one foot in front of the other, right? Yes, you gotta learn the skills, and education's important, and learning and that consuming aspect is great. But remember, there's people who are creating, there's people who are consuming. What are you gonna be? If you just enjoy this, then that's fine, right? Maybe there's other things that you're gonna use, but if you wanna actually do something, then you have to do it. Thanks, guys, for spending a few minutes listening to me rant and rave, but talk about some of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the last year as a landscape photographer. I'm really looking forward to the next year, and I'm going to continue to build on this series moving forward about some of my goals, some of the things that I wish I did better over the last year, and maybe a few other videos if you guys enjoy this. I also have some other exciting announcements coming up in the near future, so if you guys are interested in those, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It really does help. Also, that little bell icon in the bottom right corner, go ahead and hit that as well, so you're notified when I am announcing any other videos. If you also really enjoyed this video, please like and comment. It does help. I would really enjoy hearing some of your feedback and some of the lessons you've learned over the last year as we get ready really for the last hoorah of this 2021 year, and we get ready for 2022. So I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. Again, if you got this far into the video, first off, thank you, because I hate being on this side of the camera. So having you guys, your feedback really does help. Other than that, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.